become very aware that there's and I find it in nature and within myself, that there's a greater good outside of myself that wills my human spirit to seek growth and to participate and to add value and to respond to the light. So I just think, looking at nature and looking at myself, we tend to seek growth and we want to participate and add value to life. And so my saying to myself has been, if I don't phototrope and respond to the light, or if I don't respond to my calling, or if I don't grow into the person I'm meant to be, I will remain a very discontented or bored or frustrated and even depressed person. So it's been an interesting concept for me, and I always say I must phototrope today. I must look up, and I must look up to the light. So that was last week's story, but this week I'm sorting out my driveway plants. I have 3 cycads in tubs. So the one cycad has 20 leaves, and the other one has 2 leaves, and the third one has nothing. And so the one with nothing, I got a bit fed up with it, and I thought, I'm going to dig it out. So with great vigor, I dug this plant out, and while doing it, I chopped off all the roots. And unbeknown to me, when I eventually got this whole trunk of the cycad out, I discovered there were lots of little baby pup cycads at the base of the plant. And so here, unbeknown to me, in the darkness of the soil was something was happening. And so while we talk about phototroping, the plant looking to the light, at the same time the plant geotropes. And this is when a plant exhibits exhibits the roots going down. So gravity pulls the plant down, and so the roots anchor the plant, and it can nourish the plant as it puts its roots down into the soil. And what I find so amazing, that if a plant is turned upside down or sideways, the stem, or even if you plant a seed upside down or the wrong way around, the stem will eventually turn and grow towards the direction it's meant to. And the roots just knows that it must, with gravity, it must grow down. And so the significance is it ensures that the roots finds its soil, and it finds its stability, and it finds its nutrients, and the leaves end up finding the sunlight. And I sort of asked myself the question, if nature can orientate itself, or even, I've even got plants who do not thrive in this environment, but yet they've adapted to this environment and they're growing. And so the question that I just want to pose is, how do you orientate yourself when you find yourself in an environment that you're not meant to be in, or if you find yourself lying face down in the dust? How do you turn yourself up to respond to the light?
Can I start by responding to that, Coral? So I think from a logotherapeutic perspective, so if a plant is doing what is in its nature, right? The leaves, the stems, the flowers, or whatever grow towards the light, and the roots grow downwards, because in order to become what it is meant to be, that is how the plant has to behave. In other words, to fulfill its purpose and to live, I suppose, in a way according to its values, that's what it has to do. And I would say that for myself, that orientation is very similar. When I find myself lying face down in the dust, I have to look to intrinsically who I am and what my purpose is and what my values are. And very often in times of adversity, we are tempted to maybe even abandon some of our values. Sometimes we might even feel that those very values, for example, if we value trust and integrity and decency, and we don't receive that in turn from other people, we may be tempted to go, well, what is the point of living according to those values? But actually what we need to be doing in those times of adversity is cleaving ever more strongly to those values in order to fulfill who we are and what we are meant to be and what the world is asking of us in logotherapeutic terms.
So in order for a plant to grow, it has to grow up and it equally has to grow down. So both phototropism and geotropism are a very vital part of plant development for survival. But in responding to this scenario that I'm following, I just feel we spend a lot of time phototroping. We grow a lot of leaves and we do a lot of growing above the ground. And we've got a lot to show people who we are and what we're doing. But what does it mean for us humans to grow deep down and to attain a depth of being? What is our stability based on? And so in asking this, when I ask about stability, what are your roots clinging on to? Where are you getting your nourishment? And I was just thinking, for myself, it could be clinging on to another person, could be clinging on to all the knowledge, Maybe it's a spirituality. Maybe your stability is in your finance or in your material things that you've got. So it's quite a deep question to actually ponder. Where is your roots? How stable are they? And how they're being fed and how they're being nourished. So somehow we have to integrate these tender little roots and make them stable. And so, like my cycad, I didn't have much depth or understanding of this plant. And so, below the soil were these little baby cycads wanting to emerge. And there, my opportunity I missed. And how many times do we do that in life, where we just work on a surface level and we actually miss what we meant to be doing. So in reflecting on this, a little while ago I had a dream, and then I did this embroidery. So let me just show it to you. And so this is me in my garden, and then in this dream there was this open space, and then there was all this beauty on the top. So just in this dream really questioned, how deep are my roots? So when I was embroidering the bottom, I felt I was embroidering my old identity. I felt like I was so pot-bound, but I had outgrown this pot. And then I realized this whole thing in this pot is my identity. It's my whole self. It's who I am. And then in this dream, the top part of the embroidery, which is all flowers, I felt like I'd gone to heaven. And it was just, there were such beautiful objects and paintings and art, and there was beautiful music, and people were all just being so accepting of each other. But I was too shy to go in. And the people kept inviting me. They kept saying, come in. But I couldn't go in. And so it was very interesting because I found myself in this empty space of this embroidery here. I found myself here. And it was like I was a nobody. It felt like I had no identity. I didn't belong to the old flower pot, and I didn't belong there. And it's a very scary place to be. And where does one put your roots down when you're in that sort of environment? And interestingly enough, I mean, this was about 3 months ago, and I'm going to tell you what's happened at the end of all this. But what I discovered being in this empty space is where I actually found my true self. So when you come to this place and you allow yourself just to come with no agenda, and you allow yourself to become the person you're made to be. And it's like you're having to lose control and allow the world to actually show who you are. And so I sat in this place, and without any preconceived notion of what might happen, because I was so like blank about it, it left, what it did is there was infinite opportunities for me to become something. And so that is what I just wanting to share with you this evening. So the blessing of the light of phototropism to my deepest self, how this light shines on and through gravity puts my roots down. So I that's a little saying I've got to myself, the blessing of the light to your deepest self. So like phototropism and geotropism, there is an energetic tension that occurs within. One is going up and one is going down. The roots are, but it is the capacity of also the human spirit just to rise above limitations and find a meaning and to put roots down and to become. And it's something to really reflect on, is at what moment did you become, or are you having to repot yourself and needing to become again? So in answering this question, because we can do, I mean, it's all very well talking like this, but one has to ask oneself, how does one find your meaning? And so I really like what Viktor Frankl said. He argued that you cannot find your meaning within yourself. You find your meaning in the world. So I don't know if that concept is sunken into you. So you get all knotted up when you try and find it in yourself. But somehow when you go into the world, answers come to you. Well, I'm not sure. So, and then there's another thing that I always practice. It's called an examen. And the Jesuit priests, or the Jesuits, years ago, this examen is every day before you go to bed, you ask yourself, what did the world teach me today? Or how did I respond to the world today? Or what contribution did I make to the world today? So it's quite a nice little exercise to do. So what I'm wanting to just tell you tonight is how this has played out in my life in the last 2 weeks, or the last 2 months. So this is how I got a new concept and how new roots came to play in my life. So perhaps just to put to share a bit of my life. 3 months ago, my daughter had a cryptic pregnancy, and one day there was this new grandchild in my life, and she was with me for 20 hours, and then she left, and then I got a message from her therapist to say she doesn't want to talk to me and I mustn't go and contact her. And so it was a terrible sadness in me. And then on the other side is, again, this question is, what should I be doing? And I've just found, living in this little village, how do I use my love of plants for anything? And I've been asking that question for like 2 or 3 years. So I was like caught in this situation. So how did the world talk to me? So I just got like 6 little things that the world spoke to me, and it's really just given me the pathway. I want to say through my garden, and I find my meaning. I'm very close to actualizing it. So the first one is I decided to join the embroidery guild, and because I thought that's a way I want to express myself and what I'm saying. So I went to the embroidery guild, and the people, their skills are fantastic, but all they do are projects. So there's a lot of competition between each other who can do the best projects. And then my work is like totally the opposite. So, and then in this last meeting, I touched one of the embroideries, and boy, did one of these elderly ladies give me a ticking off, which really did sort of annoy me. And so in that moment, I had to choose my attitude and think, oh, am I just going to leave these people, or what should I do? So in that time, the confrontation really enabled me to define what I want. And when I came back at night, I just thought, I want to embroider, and I want to do work that has a voice, that tells a story, that has a purpose. I don't want to do little perfect pieces of embroidery where I've learned 1,000 different stitches. My work must be a conversation. And there goes down a little root. It's that confrontation, as I said, it defined me who I wanted to be.